Do you think you would enjoy it if you watched it again, or would you be just kind of like bored?
Okay, here's my take on it. My take is when I first watched it, it was like fresh information, right? And growing up, you and I are both around the same age, like late '90s. Growing up, we watched like Kobe and LeBron. I didn't really start watching basketball until like I don't know, 2004, 2005 maybe. And MJ's already long gone, has been retired. So it was cool hearing and kind of seeing a behind the scenes perspective of the man that everybody talks about in the 90s. I would have high school substitute teachers talk about, oh, when it was the Bulls versus the Lakers, you didn't root for either. You just rooted for MJ. And it was just this like mystic and aura about MJ that he was like untouchable, like he was the GOAT. And then, the first few episodes, I'm like, wow, this guy has insane work ethic. He is like the best definition of toxic masculinity and being stubborn and not wanting to listen to anybody. And then when I think about it and then see those like later episodes, and I think we even touched on this topic when we had Jeff Pearlman on, and he was great in his career, but like he wasn't happy like afterwards. So when I first watch it, I see all these stories of him working really hard, and then when I kind of watch it nowadays, if I were to rewatch it for the second time, I would be thinking of it as like this guy's kind of a psychopath, and I don't know if that would be enjoying if I would enjoy it as much as I would the first time, but I think I would probably view it in that lens more of like, hey, bro, it's great that you're the greatest of all time, like you did it, but do you really need to invite the high school coach that cut you into the Hall of Fame, invite you to that NBA induction Hall of Fame ceremony? Because that's just how petty MJ was. And I can't help but like think about it whenever any MJ story comes up. Like, yeah, he was tremendous, but this dude isn't happy anymore ever since basketball ended. And that's just my takeaways. Yeah.
I feel like greatness comes at a cost though, and for him, like the cost was being a freaking psychopath. Like I was rewatching it, and they were telling the story of how he made up, like that a player came up to him after a bad game he had and was like, "Good game, Mike," and then he came out and scored like 50 on him or something the next game, and it's just like, I don't know, like that's the price of greatness. You have to be like actually crazy, to be willing to go like to those lengths to be better than everyone else. But something else that I thought was really cool about it, we'd already talked about kind of like the behind the scenes stuff, but like it really shows how intense he was. Like when you look at the practice scenes and when he's yelling at Scott Burrell or just yelling at his teammates or just casually, like he talks shit so casually. And it's weird because there's one scene where he's like stretching and you could see like the veins popping out of his neck and his head. And he just looks like so evil and he's just like talking his shit.
Yeah, there was a scene when I think he was talking to Rodman about a play that they should run in the next out of bounds incoming play, and like he's shaking, and the eye contact with Dennis is so intense that like I started shaking too. I was like, holy shit, this guy
You
is
got scared?
yeah, this guy like he's like I feel this his intensity like through the screen, and I'm like kind of shaking in my boots right now. But yeah, it definitely comes at a cost because yeah, he's probably the GOAT. It's hard to argue against that, if not, I don't know, top two, top three, if you wanted to get into like real individual accolades. But it come out of cause where that dude's not happy. And Kobe was able to find his like second coming of, I don't know, his own identity post basketball. And maybe Jordan's kind of getting better with it when it comes to being a GM. But yeah, as for the last dance itself, whenever I look at it, I'm like, man, this guy, I just want you to be happy, bro. Like, regardless, that's all I care about.
Yeah, it's interesting to see like kind of the contrast between Jordan and Kobe because I mean they have the same reputation of being super competitive, ruthless killers on the court. It's just kind of strange how one was able to just find, I guess he kind of found that in something else in coaching. Um I mean not like he was going to coach in the NBA or anything, but just being a dad and stuff as opposed to Jordan who it seems like hasn't really found that. People can say he's like doing better as a GM, but it's just because he like looked into LaMelo low key.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see that contrast.
It also probably helps in like a humanizing aspect that MJ didn't really significantly fall off. If I were to look at like basketball reference stats, because he ended with the Bulls in 98 after his second retirement or after his first retirement. And then when he went back to the Wizards, it's kind of like Tom Brady with the Bucks or just like this 40-year-old athlete that is still trying to make it. I don't think he ended up making the playoffs or anything, but he was still, trying to get it done. For Kobe, that Achilles injury, right, where he tore it in 2013, 2012, was probably really humanizing for him. Like, okay, I am a human. This is probably the end of the road. And then that dude started like posting on social media more. Started, I don't know. He just seemed like a lot more likable, and it's like him being bad at basketball and the age finally, Mother Nature and Father Time finally kicking in. It really humbled him as a person. And then for MJ, that just didn't happen, and we're yet to kind of see it happen. But that's okay because I don't know. That's just who he is.
That's a really good point though, because like for MJ, he won 3 straight from 90 to 93. He retired, played baseball for like a year and a half, came back and he lost because he came back like midway through the season. But then after that, like he won 3 more, retired again, and then he came back with the Wizards. And at that point, he was too old. But like he probably believes, and probably with good reason, that when he's actually in shape, like there's no one who could knock him off since like 1990, which
Right. And
is like that's
considering
like insane. That's like a good 10 years of just dominating.
no, absolute dominance. And considering that he retired for the second time in 98 after he won, why else wouldn't he come back 5 years fucking later in 2003? Like nobody can stop me. Like, dude,
Yeah,
that was
he probably
5 years
thought it was
ago.
gonna be the same thing. He's like, I'm about to win a championship with the Wizards, and then I'm gonna be the owner.